Hello, everyone, and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Royal News Network. And we have some massive, huge breaking news. If you have not heard, Prince Andrew has voluntarily given up his title as Duke of York. Now, there's some specifics that we will still need to get some information on. His daughters will remain titled. Sarah Ferguson can no longer use the title Duchess of York. But this is just absolutely groundbreaking. And it has huge implications for the future of the monarchy. I think, in particular, Harry and Meghan. If they're not worried, they should be, because the pressure is now going to be on them to change up things as well. So we are going to get into some of that, obviously, as well. We have Meghan Markle being, I would say, like wildly overexposed this week. Meghan goes through these kind of things where she's away and then she kind of comes back and she kind of vomits everything at once, and then maybe she'll go away again. I don't know. But it's not a great strategy for long-term public relations, and obviously as well, just saying some ridiculous nonsense as ever. And then we also have Prince Harry. We even have a bit from his little talk he gave men. I just don't know why we're I just feel like sometimes people think that like guys enjoyed the psychobabble, that some people do, but I don't think they do. Either way, we got a little bit of his discussion that he did in New York that's finally hit sort of the airwaves. And maybe we'll touch on a couple other things. But obviously, this Andrew situation is just massive. It was not something I was anticipating. And it's just basically reframed the entire Harry and Meghan debate 150%. Because if Andrew is going to do it, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Harry and Meghan to do the same. But obviously, we need to just talk about kind of what this means overall. And so, if you guys are just tuning in, Prince Andrew has voluntarily given up his royal title, Duke of York. Now, again, there are some specifics we're still not aware of at this point, but still, oh my goodness, this is massive. So, we're going to go ahead and look at some of the times here, guys, as well. And obviously, this just broke a little bit ago. So it's just kind of about trying to kind of catch up with everything real quick here, because this is not how we were anticipating ending our Friday for sure. But we do have a couple things here. Gretchen the second has been a member for 16 months. Congratulations, Gretchen. We also have Carol has gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Carol. And we do have Kelly's Clubhouse, who has given a super chat. Thank you so much, Kelly. I really, really do appreciate it here. And yeah, you're saying you're next, Harold. Yes. I mean, we have to discuss the specifics of Andrew in particular in this kind of context, but 150%, if the pressure is on Andrew and he makes this decision, the next question becomes, what do Harry and Meghan do, and will there be more pressure on them? I think there will be, and there definitely should be. And I think it's huge that Andrew made this decision himself. I think that's absolutely massive, and I think something to definitely kind of, again, reframes this sort of whole debate situation, because if Andrew is going to do it, then the question becomes, why can't Harry and Meghan do it? Because Harry and Meghan should be doing it. So sorry, guys, catching up on some of the things as well as we get into this, because again, so much happening. This is just such a huge deal. And it's going to, again, change so much. And it's going to have huge implications. So as we're still having people come in, if you're not aware, Prince Andrew has given up his titles. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and check it out. So this first came up in the Telegraph, who had said that Andrew was thinking about it. And it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, breaking, because I think it broke not too long ago, obviously late in the day UK. So this broke at about a little after 2, I think it was, or about 2:00. So we do have a kind of guideline here. So that was 7:00 in the UK. And so people, obviously, it will hit the press. I'm not sure if it'll be in enough time to be on the papers for the next day, but this will definitely be over the weekend. And every title he has is wrapped up in this. And he's sort of given up his membership in the Order of the Garter. So, again, all of this is going to be just an absolutely massive groundbreaking change. So, let's go ahead and look at the Times of London piece here. So, we get greater context into what this means for Andrew and what it means for the royal family overall. So it says Prince Andrew forced to renounce Duke of York title. Andrew will relinquish all titles after his friendship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein threatened to overshadow the reign of King Charles. And this is something that has been long in the offing. Andrew should have done it eons ago, but he was very, very stubborn. But this is a brilliant move by him in many ways because it was just something that he needed to do. And it just looks really, really bad if you're forced to do it. It looks much better if you voluntarily give it up. So let's go ahead and look at, and we have some information about what this means for Sarah and the girls and everything. So it says Prince Andrew has been forced to relinquish all his titles, including Duke of York and Knight of the Garter, after his friendship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein threatened to overshadow the reign of his brother. I hate it when they sort of do the subtitle and the first sentence are like the same. Anyways, he will remain known as Prince Andrew in accordance with the law first set down by George V in 1917, which stipulates that the son of a monarch can be called a prince. His Royal Highness, HRH, status will remain in abeyance. And a private lease agreement with the Crown Estate means that he can stay at residence in Royal Lodge. So what I think was sort of started to happen here, in particular with Andrew, is he was getting a ton of pressure. And what we haven't talked about is Virginia Giuffre, who tragically took her life earlier this year. She actually has a memoir that is going to be published, I think next week, if it's not has been published already. And so because of that, that puts even more of a spotlight on him. So this was sort of a natural outcome of all this. So I know I see a lot of questions about succession, counselor of state. This article does, and this Times is like the Times of London is basically the newspaper of record in the UK. And so it says the titles which Andrew has relinquished included his knighthood as Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order and his Garter role as Royal Knight Companion of the Most Noble Order of the Garter. So he has given up all of these. And again, this is going to be a huge blow to his ego, but it's unavoidable at this point. And it's important to say, because this obviously translates to Harry and Meghan as well. He did this to himself. Nobody forced Andrew to do any of this stuff. He did this crap to himself. He was led more by money, so greed, let's say lust, and all those sorts of things, gluttony, whatever, and went along with Jeffrey Epstein. And he was okay for a while, but it was just going to come back out on him. So this is a natural outcome of some very, very poor decision making. And this is how it should happen. And so it says in a press release from Buckingham Palace, so this came out again at about 2:00, in discussion with the king and my immediate family and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. So I think this distract is really, really key here for what it means for other members of the family. So if you are a distraction, you sort of need to be dealt with. And not dealt with in a bad way, but just like naturally there has to be consequences to that. So it says, I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. Okay, he's never really done that much. He's been very much interested in duty to himself and enriching himself. So that's, here and there. And then it goes on to say, I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. And then he goes on to say, with His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honors which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. And again, just for record, Andrew has never been convicted in a court of law of anything. So when it comes to that, it's hard to say, like, I don't want to say, oh, he's guilty and throw the book at him and stuff like that. And he also can't obviously face his accusers because basically his accusers have all died and for especially in Virginia's case, very tragically. And not saying that what she said wasn't true or anything like that. We have a lot of accusations, and a lot of them probably hold a lot of water, but it's very difficult to get to the truth here in this particular situation. But he is, basically allowed to say, I denied these accusations. And so it says Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's former wife, will no longer be known as the Duchess of York. So again, this is probably the palace speaking directly to the Times to add a bit more context. Because again, what I'm confused about here is that he says he won't use them, but does that mean he actually gave the titles back to King Charles? Or does he have them and won't use them? That's kind of because we've had that situation before, and that hasn't worked out too well. So again, big question here. And their daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, are unaffected. So they will not be impacted by this decision. So their places in the line of succession, their titles. So I would guess, now this is the interesting thing that they don't clarify, but are they still Princess Beatrice of York? Or is it just Princess Beatrice? That's kind of the interesting. Although Princess Alexandra of Kent is still known as Princess Alexandra of Kent. So, and she's obviously been married many years. Obviously, the girls have as well, but it's just sort of an interesting, point of discussion here. And then as we keep going down, it says a source close to the king said that Charles was fond of the princesses and was keen to protect them from the scandals surrounding their parents. Both Beatrice and Eugenie preserve their royal status and titles. And I think that's good. Obviously, I don't think it's fair, and I've always said this. I don't think it's fair to punish the kids for the parents' decisions. Now, again, the question becomes, how much was Beatrice and Eugenie aware of certain things in regards to the financial scandals? I don't think they had anything to do with Epstein, but they were definitely somewhat connected to the financial issues. And obviously, they used a lot of their father's connections for their own business interests. So that is, I think, a huge question. And that's something that still should be, I think, explored. I think in many ways, actually, what's more damaging to the monarchy is Andrew using his status as a special envoy to make money for himself. I think that's a bigger issue. But that's not one, obviously, we're going to discuss right now, but it should be discussed because will this happen again? Will somebody use and again, this comes back to Harry and Meghan. Will somebody use their connections to the monarchy to enrich themselves when they're supposed to be representing the UK government? Because that, again, to me, is a huge, huge question about Andrew and one about Harry and Meghan as well. So, and it says the change in Andrew's status, a decision he made in close consultation with the king, comes into effect immediately. Again, I think if Andrew could have avoided it, he would, but the pressure was just too much. And I think they were really looking to take the house, and Andrew didn't want them to take Royal Lodge. I don't quite get why. Like, you can go down to Frogmore Cottage. Who gives a crap? But whatever. Anyways, it says His Majesty was said to be glad of the outcome. It is understood the decision was taken in recognition of Andrew's personal issues continuing to dominate the royal narrative. Somebody else has that issue as well. The Prince of Wales was also consulted, as were members of the wider family. Buckingham Palace has also made it clear that Andrew will not be permitted to join the rest of the family for Christmas events, although an invitation will be extended to his daughters. While Andrew is still listed as a counselor of state, one of the members of the royal family who can deputize the monarchy in their absence, it has been ruled that he will never be called upon to do so. So they expanded the number of counselors of state to extend to other members of the family. So in particular, the Princess Royal and Prince Edward. And I can't remember exactly like the specifics that they referenced, but basically that can only be with working royals. And if you have to extend that, because obviously Beatrice is wrapped up in that as well. And at some point, of course, they will be sort of moved on from that anyways, once the Wales's kids start having children, and even Harry's kids, to be quite honest. Although I think the Wales's kids having kids will probably knock them down before it's even necessary thing to address, will knock them out of contention for that. So it's just going to be something that will naturally happen. So this is definitely a great move in that direction. But obviously, I'm sure this is in some ways really devastating for the girls. I don't totally blame them for that. And it's just, though, the natural outcome of Andrew's very, very poor decision making over the years. So we do also have the Telegraph, which basically sort of broke the story. I think they maybe jumped before the embargo, so 1900 hours, so that would be 7 o'clock. So, this was coming. So what strictly embargoed means that the newspapers have the information, but they are prevented from saying anything about it until 7 o'clock. So that's what this means if you're not familiar. So this is the actual official statement. And so they said Andrew has agreed to stop using titles, including Duke of York, saying he's always put his family and country first. Again, I don't think that's exactly correct. The development first revealed by the Telegraph following a string of news scandals concerning the royals' relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and his relationship with an alleged Chinese spy. So if you're not familiar with that story, that comes from Pitch with the Palace or Pitch at the Palace or something like that. It was sort of a business operation that he ran where he would try to gather investors and business owners, and so that the business owners can pitch to the investors and that deals can be made so he can wheel and deal. However, if you did get a deal through Pitch at Palace, Andrew actually got a cut of your company. So that was a little hinky as well, but this Chinese guy was involved in that. So if you're not aware of that particular scandal, so we do have the statement as well from Andrew again. So he put all his titles in abeyance. And so I'm still kind of confused as if the king now has those or if he just won't use them. Because again, we've seen where somebody goes, oh, I won't use them, and then still continues to use them. So it says the prince will give up his membership to the Order of the Garter. The prince has also agreed to put his HRH title in abeyance, and his role as counselor of state is inactive as he's not a working royal. So again, they changed counselors of state. You have to be a working royal, and they added more to the roster. So Sarah will also relinquish her title and will simply be known as Sarah Ferguson. And this comes on the heels as well, I should mention. So it's not just Andrew in this particular situation, and why it's actually sort of a big deal for Sarah as well. Because Sarah recently, an email was revealed, and I think actually technically people knew about it in January, but it really only started to get traction now, which is that she publicly denounced Jeffrey Epstein. And then on the side, she sent him an email going, oh, we're still friends. I still like you. I just had to say this to get the press to go away. And she said, I didn't really mean it, basically. And it was sort of, kind of the two-faced hypocrisy thing of her. And so that played really poorly for Sarah. And so she was under the hot seat under Epstein. And then the new email of Andrew basically doing the same thing kind of reignited the question of, should we be allowing this to happen? And yeah, I think right now I did see somebody saying being greedy is never good. Yes. So much of this, especially if you read Andrew Lowney's book on Andrew and Sarah, all of this came from basically greed. Andrew and Sarah both needed money. Sarah was constantly in debt, wildly overspending. And so they were just constantly in need of cash. And again, it's hard to ignore the comparisons to Harry and Meghan. And yes, Harry and Meghan, let's say, are not in a bad place now, but might they be in the future? I think there's a strong possibility that might happen. So let's see if the Telegraph has anything else. The decision was made in close consultation with the King and Prince of Wales. The King was glad, and the change is immediate. So it was, a statement from Prince Andrew. This is kind of a cool thing to reflect. A statement from Prince Andrew rather than Duke of York, because Duke of York is technically a higher title than Prince. Kind of like Duke of Sussex is technically a higher title than Prince Harry. So aides stress that he remains son of Queen Elizabeth II, and therefore the title Prince will still be used. I think that's fine, in accordance with the letters of patent issued by George V. So Beatrice and Eugenie are unaffected. And so until now, the palace had resisted taking such punitive action, but felt its hand had finally been forced. Aides are aware that there's likely a far more revelations to come concerning Andrew's relationship with Epstein, late pedophile and financier. The change in tact also comes after the Telegraph revealed on Thursday that the prince had meetings with Kai Qi, the top Chinese official at the center of the Beijing spy case. On at least 3 occasions from 2018 to 2019, he also invited him to Buckingham Palace for lunch in 2018. And then we go down, and says, just previously leaked emails showed that Prince Andrew stayed in touch with Epstein longer than he had claimed, raising questions about what else he may have lied about. So he said in his Newsnight interview in 2019 that he had cut off contact with Epstein in December of 2010, but just days after, a photograph was published in 2011 showing Prince Andrew with his arm around Virginia Giuffre, the late sex trafficking victim. He contacted Epstein to express concerns for his welfare and adding that they were in this together. So, and it basically validates that this picture is true. Some people have tried to spin it that this picture is not real. It is real. So Mr. Kai, who is at the heart of a collapsed spy case and one of the most senior members of the Chinese Communist Party, is a close ally of Xi Jinping, Chinese president. He's understood to be at the final recipient of sensitive information allegedly passed to China by Christopher Berry and Christopher Cash, the two British nationals accused of spying for Beijing. Revelations concerning his relationship with Prince Andrew emerged just months after it was emerged that Andrew had forged a close friendship with Yang Tengbo, a suspected Chinese spy who inserted himself into the highest circles of the British establishment. So that I might be getting these two guys maybe mixed up. So I do apologize for that. High Court ruled that Mr. Yang had formed an unusual degree of trust with the prince, having been invited to the royal birthday party in 2020 and having helped set up Chinese brands of Prince Andrew's pitch at Palace. Okay, so Mr. Yang was the particular guy. Prince Andrew met Mr. Kai at least 3 times, both in London and Beijing. So this is another potential Chinese spy Andrew was attached to. Just days ago, royal aides were suggesting that they had done all they could to punish the errant prince. The removal of titles considered a step too far, despite public support for the move. Andrew has already been stripped of his military titles and charity affiliations and is banned from using his much-cherished HRH honorific. So this, again, changes the game. It changes the game completely for what it looks like for Harry and Meghan. Because with Andrew voluntarily giving up his titles, he is doing the thing that I have argued needs to be done. And this is not just an Andrew issue. This is an all over royals issue, which is to separate members of the family who are no longer working, who are dragging down the entire system from actual working royals. And this is just so incredibly important. This is just like any company. Let's say if you are running a huge brand, let's say Target, and then you have a competitor named Target who also has a bullseye for a logo, but it's, blue instead of red, and it's basically copying everything you're doing, but doing it in a cut rate way, or basically swindling people or something like that. You stop the brand damage by sort of getting rid of and gobbling up the competition. This is how businesses run. I realize the palace is not that, but it is in some ways as well. And so the issue with Andrew is that he was so damaging to the brand of the monarchy that you had to get rid of him to preserve everything else, because everything he's done. And you have to actually, I think I have to give a shout out to Andrew Lowney too, who was great to interview on this topic, because his book came out, more came out about Sarah, then we get the Andrew thing, and then these titles. And I think it just reinvigorated why people don't like the Yorks, why they don't trust them, and why this was a necessary step. They are dangerous to the monarchy. They are damaging to it because they're not run by logic. They're not run by, I think, respect for the institution, them internally in their decision making. They're motivated by greed, both of them, Andrew and Sarah. I think for different avenues, Andrew does want the money, but Sarah is constantly in debt and always needs money, and always needs somebody to bail her out. And I got to give her credit. She's really, really great at sort of coming up with a new hustle quite a bit. And she's sort of done the same hustles, but they've created a situation where it's just, they could have lived just fine, being quiet, even with the Jeffrey Epstein connection, let's say. They could have lived quietly away, done their things, whatever. But the association was so bad, and it came up again and again and again. And it wasn't just like a lot of famous people have had brushes with Jeffrey Epstein, is that even when all the bad stuff came out about Epstein, Andrew was still attached to him. Andrew still wanted to be friends with him. And that was, I think, the crux of the issue, is that even when everybody else in the world was going, this guy is bad news, everybody else stepped away, and Andrew somehow wanted to get closer. And obviously, it's led him to ruin. So what does this mean, obviously, for Harry and Meghan? Because Harry and Meghan, although they have different tracks, and you can say they've done everything pretty well at this point, there's a big question for them, I think, in the future, which is that what will they do to make money? because we've seen they have big, big, healthy appetites for cash. Meghan needs a lot of expensive trinket jewelry. She wants more Hermes coats. I'm sure she wants an Hermes Birkin. And so she needs to drop a lot of cash at Hermes. She shops a lot at Cartier, and they want to take private jets, although they've been kind of forced to take passenger jets recently, which I find kind of funny. And so they are constantly wanting cash, wanting to be connected to famous people. And Meghan was just seen at a event with Emma Grede. And Emma Grede has a lot of money because Meghan, of course, is always following the cash, always wanting to, yes, she's trying to make her own money. But the damage comes to the fact that Meghan, at this point, has yet to establish that she is anything other than a woman with a title who has a side hustle. Everything about Meghan at this point, all the agreements, all the business, everything is tied to the fact that she is the Duchess of Sussex and nothing else. Harry and Meghan have yet to rub two creative brain cells together to show that they have an ounce of creative talent in an industry that is dying, by the way. Hollywood is dying. In fact, ironically, most of the productions are freaking moving to the UK, the place they hate, because you can save a lot of money by going to the UK. Producing in Los Angeles has become wildly expensive, ridiculously expensive because of all the union requirements, all the state requirements. You have to have like a ceremony for, if some indigenous people at some point own this particular set of land, even though now it's a strip mall, you still have to, pay your respects to it. It's gotten insane. So all of Hollywood productions are moving out of town and the industry itself is dying. And Harry and Meghan are attached to the only winner in this game, which is Netflix. But Netflix is also spending millions, if not billions, on loser properties sometimes. And so they will run out of cash at some point if they're not careful. And if they don't figure out a way to sort of diversify enough of their assets. Obviously, they're trying. But Harry and Meghan, I think, will go to anyone who gives them cash. And that's the danger there. I think Meghan has a bit more of a head on her shoulders than Andrew and Sarah do in this particular circumstance. But I wildly see a possibility of Harry and Meghan stepping in it, much like Andrew and Sarah. I 100% see that possibility in the future. Harry and Meghan would be horrified by that idea because I think especially Harry hates his uncle and does not want to become his uncle. But sometimes in the process of not becoming somebody, you actually do become them because you're not really taking the lessons that this person has experienced. And so when it comes to the titles for Harry and Meghan are also doing brand damage like Sarah and Andrew. Because Meghan is trying to influencerize her royal title. And that just makes it cheap. It makes it tacky. And you just had to look at her recent Instagram to see that. Because my mom was sort of horrified because she's like, all she's doing is showing off her wealth. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, influencers do that. But I feel like influencers who are not so like focused on that side give you a side that's sort of interesting. Meghan, at this point, all she's showing us is, ooh, look, I'm uber wealthy. And ooh, look, I get to go to these events. And aren't I special? Well, you were special when you were standing on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Now you're just like basically any other influencer. And some of them have more followers than you do and are more successful than you are and have more interactions than you do. And she and Harry are damaging the royal brand. And the same steps must be taken. Yes, I agree. The damage is being done in very different ways. Andrew, obviously, it's a moral question 150%. Andrew's morality, his decision-making, and all these things are reflecting bad on the institution. But Harry and Meghan's are in a different way as well. And they are cheapening the monarchy to such an extent. Again, it's like I have my little Coca-Cola bottle here because I find these fun. But the Coca-Cola bottle, if there was another Coca-Cola brand that had a white background and red lettering and used a K instead of a C, Coca-Cola would destroy it in like 5 seconds because it's brand damage. Harry and Meghan are doing the same thing and the same decisions need to happen. And with Andrew voluntarily doing it, it raises the question of, shouldn't Harry and Meghan do the exact same thing? Shouldn't Harry and Meghan make the really smart decision here to let go of the royal titles and just be Harry Sussex and Meghan Sussex? He can still technically be Prince Harry. He will always be Prince Harry. I've never said he should lose that. But I mean, I guess it becomes a question then because they can't really use Sussex if he's no longer the Duke of Sussex. But I don't know, maybe some compromise can come. But Harry and Meghan are also doing a lot of damage and they're a lot more active. I mean, Andrew, at the very least, shut up for the last, 6, 7 years since basically the Nightline interview or night, whatever that interview was. And so he is shut up, which I think has helped him immensely. Harry and Meghan have not shut up. And they're constantly using their royal titles. They're constantly using it in commercial endeavors. And that's not what the monarchy is, and it's not what it should be doing. And as a result, they are immensely damaging it. And so because of that, steps should be made, much like Andrew. But because Andrew voluntarily gave it up, now the pressure becomes Andrew has now been taken care of. This is a danger for Harry and Meghan. Andrew has been taken care of largely. He's taken care of himself. He's extricated himself from the game. So now all the pressure becomes what to do about Harry. What to do about Harry's titles. When Harry goes to the UK and basically does a pseudo royal tour as if he's still royal. No, he shouldn't be doing that. The palace needs to stop that from happening. And so how the palace does that, I think, reflects greatly on King Charles's legacy in the future. How does he deal with this? They managed to finally pressure Andrew enough to let it go. But Harry should be fearful because now all the attention will move over to him. Andrew was kind of this distraction in the corner. And when I've said, oh, Harry should have his title stripped and so should Andrew. Or I just say Harry should have his title stripped. But what about Andrew? I was like, oh, Andrew too. Like, I don't really care. And then, but now with Andrew walking away, I was like, well, Andrew walked away. Harry should walk away too, because it's not just about the brand damage and everything, but Harry left, lit the store on fire as he walked out the door, whistled while he worked, and then complained somehow we are responsible for the fire, or the royal family was responsible for the fire, when he was the one having a campfire in the middle of the store and let the embers go wild or whatever. It doesn't work. So, for the future continuity of the monarchy, Harry does need to be dealt with in the same way. And he should be shaking in his boots that this finally happened to Andrew, because the question was, well, how do we deal with this and everything? Now we have dealt with it. Now Charles can go to Harry. It's like, well, your uncle did this. You should do this too. This helps me. Don't you want to help your father? All these sorts of things. Now the screws are going to be turned to Harry and Meghan. And every time they use their titles, they're going to be looked at again and again and again. Why are you using these? Why can't you just go by Harry and Meghan? Why do we have to do this? Why does everybody have to? Why do you have stationery with flipping HRH on it? And I do think because the kids are not raised in the UK at all, they have no UK connection basically whatsoever, that this should also extend in the different case to the York girls. This should be extended to Harry and Meghan's kids as well, because they live in California. They have no connection to the monarchy. This needs to be addressed publicly, and or not publicly, I guess, but this needs to be addressed, and this needs to be prevented from going sideways in 20 to 30 years, because who knows where Harry and Meghan's kids are going to end up at this point. I don't have a ton of hope. I worry about them, what they might do with their titles and everything, walking around LA going, I'm Prince Archie, which is still a terrible name. I hate the name Archie for a kid. Sorry. It's one of those things. I'm just not a fan. So sorry. But it reminds me of Archie from the Archie comics. And it like feels so on the nose because her kid has red hair. So I'm going to name him Archie. I'm like, really? Really? Anyways, so you don't want these kids walking around with titles, because with titles, walking around without, let's say, the umbrella, it doesn't, and this is not a bad thing to have an umbrella. There should be a standard of conduct within the monarchy. And I think technically there probably is somewhere, but this needs to be set in stone. There's a standard of conduct. If you operate outside that standard of conduct, which I think particularly should be punished, is commercializing royal titles to make money, because again, that cheapens the monarchy. It calls it into disrepute. So many different things. There must be a way to address this. It should have been with Andrew. It should be for anyone who is abusing their titles in order to get ahead. And yes, because you have a royal title, yeah, you might get a leg up in a business or in a job or something like that. You can't avoid that, especially if you're born royal. But if you are abusing it, if you're using it in ways that I feel like damage and undermine the monarchy, that should be something that's dealt with in the most severest form possible. And for Harry and Meghan, that means stripping the titles. And again, if I was them, I'd be shaking in my boots that this Andrew nuisance or distraction, because again, when I've debated with people online or whatever, they're like, but what about Andrew? What about Andrew? But now Andrew's taking himself out of the game. So now it just becomes, what are Harry and Meghan going to do? And the thing is, I would have so much more respect for Harry and Meghan if they voluntarily did this, because I have more respect for Andrew. Yes, do I think he was immensely pressured? Yes. But was this a right move to make? Yes. Will it reflect good on him to do so? Yes, I do think it will. And actually, it's a kind of a boon for him in just his public relations. He's like, I had this title, but I gave it up, everybody. I did the right thing. Harry and Meghan not doing the right thing. And they should follow the Andrew approach, because now it becomes you guys should follow the Andrew approach. And I thought from the beginning, like being quieter like Andrew, it works. And Harry and Meghan abusing it, calling herself Duchess of Sussex on everything, having bags, having mats, having pins for their staff, for Pete's sakes, having and pins, I mean like lapel pin, as if they're diplomats. Because again, if you're not familiar, in certain situations like diplomats or businesses or whatever, they'll have a little lapel pin they'll have people wear as they walk around a particular event or what have you, to represent who they are. It's like, that's idiotic. They're just two people with a fair amount of money who happen to have royal titles. They don't have any diplomatic powers whatsoever. They represent nothing but their own bank accounts. And that's the thing. Being royal should mean something, even if you have a private job. If you are royal, you should respect your institution enough. And I feel strongly that a lot of them do, that they don't want to pull it into disrepute because they respect the institution, their family enough to operate accordingly. But people who don't, like Harry and Meghan, like Andrew and Sarah, the ultimate punishment in this case, which is removing the titles, should be the route forwards. And so I think the next to come under this sort of umbrella of pressure is going to be Harry and Meghan, because the thing is, they let Andrew go on for too long. And it was just scandal after scandal after scandal. Now, Harry and Meghan have done better about not slamming on the royals, but they do it more in like barbs and issues and various things. So for me, at least I would say for the future, the best thing to do would be for the pressure to be on now, because you don't want to deal with the problem down the road, because this will be a problem down the road. I can almost 100% guarantee it. I can almost 100% say there will be an issue with Harry and Meghan down the line that's just not going to work. It's not going to work. And so I think this is something to watch for sure. I'll be interested to see how things sort of flip around and move around, because we don't know quite what the next move will be. But King Charles has had these attempts to reconcile with Harry. And I have said this always, and I still agree that for a personal reconciliation between father and son, I don't really think anybody should stay in the way of that. But what are Harry's motivations? Because he claims he just wants to reconcile with his father. He's left his security issues behind him. And then he's lobbying the government directly. Because this is a thing Andrew hasn't done. Yes, Andrew might have been involved in criminal activity 150%. But Harry is actively involved lobbying the government for a very personal reason that does not help the people at all. It's just merely to help Harry and his family and nobody else. Royals should not be doing that, especially one who is constitutionally irrelevant. Again, I've said this before. I'll say this 1,000 times. Harry simply, by leaving the monarchy, sped up the inevitable when it came to his security issues. His security was always going to be pulled, guys. At some point, he would never have gotten 24/7 security after a point. That would have been taken away from him, as it was for his uncles and aunt. That's just a reality of being the spare. And Harry seems to somehow think that he's more important than basically everybody else in his family. And that's just simply not the case. And so this future for him is looking pretty bleak at this point, because Harry's and Meghan's biggest problem in their Hollywood careers, which are, again, pretty dismal at this point. They have yet to have a hit beyond just simply ragging on his family. With Love Megan, you could argue was maybe a mediocre success at best. Season 1, season 2 catastrophically flopped, like flopped hard. I actually a whole article on it in Substack talking about how in the case of Netflix, Megan was in actually the top 10 countries of quite a few. I want to say it's 20 something. She did not make a single top 10 country at all for season 2. And so that's a huge catastrophic fall, which basically meant everybody from season 1 did not want to watch season 2. Or in my theory, everybody just wanted to watch the Mindy Kaling tantrum and then they dropped off. And Harry and Meghan have yet at any point to prove they have a talent beyond having a royal title. They're not good producers. They're not good creatives, as far as we can tell. Meghan can do calligraphy, what she calls calligraphy. I call it fancy cursive. Meghan can write fancy cursive. Harry can, speak nonsense for money. That's basically their skill set at this point. And they've relied on their royal titles so much to get them anywhere and relied on his family so much to get anywhere. Number one, if they're making reconciliation efforts, are they doing that because he wants a relationship with his father, or are they doing that because they need money? Because the only thing, again, that made them money is his family and the connection to his family, and that is it. So without that connection, what do they have? They have made, I think, the catastrophic error of proving they could do anything beyond labeling everything, I'm the Duchess of Sussex or the Duke of Sussex. Pretty much Meghan, though. So nothing she could do beyond just having, I mean, she would put Meghan, but she would always also say Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in the titles and the captions and all these sorts of things. And I feel like that, number one, to a lot of people is really, really grating, because it's like, okay, we know you had this bit part on Suits, but you were never an Academy Award level actress by any stretch of the imagination. I've watched some of her stuff. Honestly, I think she's a horrible actress, like truly awful. And she couldn't get anything else. And Harry was her thing. But a royal title is not a magic wand. It doesn't imbue you with talent you didn't have before. And unfortunately for Harry and Meghan, they just don't have a lot. And I already think we're seeing a bit of the panic and a bit of the reshuffle and Meghan relaunching, because without that deal with Netflix, the money's not going to roll in as it was. Harry got a lot of money, I think, from his book, but I'm sure that has dwindled quite a bit as well. So they have to look for something else. And unfortunately, the monarchy might be on the chopping block for them. And that's the big risk here, is that once again, it'll become Meghan's going to do a memoir. Oh, what is Meghan going to do in the memoir? Oh, she's going to say what the alleged royal racist told her. And who knows if it's true? We have no clue. I would argue it's not true, but they've done a lot of damage. They've claimed the royals are racist. They've claimed they weren't accommodating to Meghan and her alleged psychological needs, which I don't agree were true. And so she's done that already. Now, if the coffers get lower and lower and lower, what will she do? How will she elevate and embellish the story? Because we've actually seen a track record of this. And this is really interesting because this just came to mind. So this just happened. I'm just a little all over the place, maybe a little bit. But what's actually really interesting is that Meghan's soap story, she's told us this, I want to say it's 50 times. It's not. But we've heard this story, I want to say at least a good 5 solid times at this point. We heard it at South by Southwest. We've heard it in the UN speech. We've heard it in the documentary. We've heard it in her Bloomberg interview. And I feel like we've heard it recently as well, or whatever. We've heard this story numerous times. But in the Bloomberg interview, which was the latest iteration, she added another level to it. She elevated the story because now it was all happening during the LA riots. So now we have this tension because, our parents couldn't get back to us to pick us up because the LA riots. So we were watching the riots on the TV. Now, depending on how young they were, why were they watching the LA riots on the TV? That just doesn't seem very smart. Although I did actually grow up in Southern California, and they literally announced the O.J. Simpson verdict over the loudspeaker of my freaking elementary school. That is 100% a true story. I remember exactly where I was on the playground when that happened. Very strange. Anyways, so because of that, it's like, okay, so she's told the story so many times. Now she has to add another element to it. So was that element already always there? Or is she conflating two events? Or is she making something up to make it more dramatic? Because she's told the story so many times at this point. Oh, I have to add another thing to it. And this is the danger if Meghan Markle does a book about her time within the royal family and everything, which I'm sure is probably on the pipeline of things starting getting super bad, which is that we're going to embellish what may be an innocent comment. At the very least, let's say we give her the benefit of the doubt, and somebody made a very innocent comment to her about what Archie might look like in the future, like any family does, speculating about who the kid will look like or whatever. Meghan twists that into something racist, which it never was. But now it's become worse over time. And she's going to do it again and again and again. And so that's the danger here. And this is why, again, the issue of Harry and Meghan must be addressed. You can't just let it linger. It's only going to get worse because Harry and Meghan, as we've seen with Andrew and Fergie, have the same issue, which is that they need and want cash. And they don't want, the thing is, guys, Harry could have bought a huge plot of land. Harry and Meghan could have bought a huge plot of land somewhere probably in Northern California or in like somewhere else throughout the United States and in more of a rural area and lived probably very private lives. They've chosen a very public life. They've chosen a very expensive location and they've chosen a world that requires competition. Keeping up with the Joneses goes up to 11 in California. So they're going to spend money just to compete with their peers, to look like they're being as successful as everybody else. So they're going to live a billionaire's lifestyle on a millionaire's salary. And you want to bet bottom to dollar at some point that's going to start to come back and bite them in the butt because I don't think they have many good things going forwards. Like, one of the things Meghan's ads ever business, I don't think that thing is going to succeed. It looks pretty bad at this point. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, it doesn't look like a business that's going to do very well in the future. And so it's going to get, I think, worse for the royals rather than better. And that's why it's, I think, very good in a lot of ways to address this issue. Address it now. Fix it now before it becomes a massive problem down the line. And with Andrew having voluntarily made this step, it becomes so much easier for the pals to put pressure on Harry and Meghan to do the same. And I don't think Harry and Meghan will take very well to it because they know they have nothing without those titles. They have nothing. And yeah, their businesses might still go on and not everything is connected to the titles, but so much of their business is tied to being royal in California. And I think they're diminishing what it means to be royal and confusing people about what it means to be royal because they tell a lot of, in my personal opinion, a lot of lies. A lot of them can be proven to be like absolute lies. Some of them you can't totally prove, but like we were married 3 days before our wedding by the Archbishop of Canterbury. No, he says that's not true. Archie was denied, I think she said, a title because of his skin tone and kind of tied security into that. But no, he wasn't entitled to a title when he was born. He was the great grandson of the monarch, not the grandson of the monarch. Big, big difference. And he's not the son of the Prince of Wales or son of the future Prince of Wales. Huge, huge contradiction, huge clarifications there. And I know there's other things over the years, but those are the two ones that always come to mind. But because of that, you can't, I think, rely on Harry and Meghan to be good narrators and good kind of reflections of what it means to be royal. And so the royal family has to decide itself, what does it mean to be royal? And if these people aren't following the guidelines, it just needs to be dealt with. And I see here, JJ, what press release Sarah's just Sarah Ferguson. So she can use the title Dutch. She could for a long time, and she did use the title Duchess of York, but now it's been taken away. So she can no longer use that. And I think that should be same with Harry and Meghan. They should not be allowed to use Duke and Duchess of Sussex. That should be gone. And they should just live as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I don't think there's anything that terrifies Meghan more than just simply being Meghan Markle again. I think she lives in fear of that because Meghan Markle wasn't all that successful. Again, I've argued, if you've never been to my channel before, I've argued for a long time that actually a lot of Meghan's suits money went to paying for PR. And so because of that, she didn't actually have that much entering into the marriage because so much of her money was wasted on PR. So instead of her just simply doing good work, she paid to get in front of people so she could be seen doing good works. Huge difference. So guys, that is the update on Andrew. I think for Sarah, it's obviously looking rather bleak for her as well. And the Beatrice and Eugenie, I think the cloud of their parents will always hang over them. Of course, as well, I think that Andrew and Sarah, like, I think they have probably influences their daughters in some negative ways, but I still think overall, mostly, I would say they're fine. They're not really the big issue. Mom and dad are, but mom and dad now are basically ostracized from the royal life. And I think this is a step that should be extended to Harry and Meghan as well. And I think it's something that they should decide to do themselves rather than it being forced upon them. But I sort of don't really have much doubt that that will happen. I think Harry and Meghan will be the ones to force their own hands here. So it's a huge change, a huge breaking news. I actually should look, guys, because I haven't looked too much because we've been discussing all of it. If there's any other big news here and about Andrew or anything, but I don't see anything super new. But of course, if something comes up, I will let you all know. But this is, I think, for Harry and Meghan, they're quaking in their boots. I just have no doubt that they're quaking in their boots. And yes, Andrew will remain at Royal Lodge. He probably has a decent amount of money hidden around somewhere with all his sort of nefarious wheeling and dealing. So I don't think he's a pauper, but it's definitely changing the game quite a bit. Changing the game. And again, I think it's something Harry and Meghan could do, and it would be a really, really great thing for them to do. I think in so many ways, I think it would play so much better for them than just constantly like putting DS on a Longchamp bag for Duchess of Sussex or having a Christian Dior bag that says DSSOS, Duchess of Sussex on it. Like, don't be that level of patheticness. But anyways, let's go ahead and get to some of the super chats that we have here, guys, since they've been coming in as I've been talking. And so we do have Carol who says, I'm happy that Andrew's had a slice of common sense and given up the titles. Pressure is building on Harry and Meghan. So this is from Carol. Thank you so much, Carol. And yes, I agree. A lot of pressure is going to be on Harry and Meghan now. Lots. Anna, who's been a member for 12 months, gave a little wave. Hi, Anna. And then we do have Stephen as well. Meghan must be scared that Harry does the same. Yes. And it's not just that Harry does the same, but that they'll be getting the same pressure, the same questions, I think. And yes, they don't have the same level of issue that Andrew has, but still, there's definitely issues there. Diz fan, thank you so much for the super chat as well. What does this mean for the York girls? I would imagine Andrew, Charles, William, etc., will have sat down together like Mexit. Maybe, maybe not. It seems like this feels like somewhat of a rush decision. So it may have just been like the pressure just got too much for Andrew and he broke. But Eugenie and Beatrice are fine. The question I have is, will they be Princess Beatrice and Eugenie of York, or will they just be Princess Beatrice and Eugenie of like Windsor or something? That I don't know. So, and Disfan also gave a super chat, and that's, would you allow the York sisters as working royals or move up the Tyndalls? Tyndalls would not be moved up. They're way too far down the line of succession. It's the royals are not really a popularity contest based on who's most popular, which would probably be Zara and Mike would be one of them, the Tyndalls, but it's line of succession. So I don't have really any issue with the York girls being working royals. I like them. But when it comes to the rest of the royal sphere, like, they do need more working royals. They just do. The Gloucesters will retire at some point. Duke of Kent is in his 90s. I think he turned 90. And so it's, you got to move some people up. Obviously, the Duchess of Kent has tragically passed away, but she wasn't a working royal anymore. But interesting questions for sure. Carol said strip implications for the future. Yes. Yes. The future implications here are quite large. And so thank you so much again for the super chat, Carol. We have Siba Wow and gave $5, says, please, people, Prince is not a title, it's a style. So yeah, he's styled as a Prince Andrew, and that's what he'll keep. But title as Duke of York is gone. Carol said, gifted one Royal News Network membership. I thank you so much, Carol. And Peggy Spungen, thank you so much for the super chat. Also said, but if their titles of Duke and Duchess are taken away, then will she be Princess Meghan, which may be worse? Would that be correct, Brittany? It would not. She would actually technically be Princess Harry, because The way the British work is actually different than the other royals, 'cause the British work as a woman is styled as an extension of her husband, basically. So Catherine holds no titles in her own right individually. Technically, if my understanding is still correct, she should actually be legally Catherine Elizabeth Middleton, because a non-blood royal cannot take the name Mountbatten Windsor, because the blood royal status is very, very huge. And so even Princess Madeline in Sweden, her children are, I think, Bernadotte O'Neill. So she's a Bernadotte, her husband is O'Neill. So her last name comes first because she's a royal and the royal blood matters. And so in this situation for Meghan, she would be Princess Harry. I mean, I guess she could go in that direction if she wanted to, like whatever, but I just don't think it'll be quite the same for her. And I think that might be something she probably doesn't like. And so we do have Carol as well. Another super chat. Thank you so much. Harry the loose cannon with diplomatic and dynastic implications. Exactly. So we do have the instance recently of Harry meeting with Zelensky, most likely, even after like the UK government asked, please don't do that. But Harry wanted to be a fanboy because apparently he has a cult status in the Ukraine and he needs to like live it up. So he really wanted that cult status and wanted to get like kudos from Zelensky. But he was asked by his government not to, because the reality is, and this is just an important distinction for people to make in general, is Harry has no ability to really do anything for anyone. What I mean by that is the royals actually talk to government officials and things happen. Harry is just basically there on a publicity tour. It's really, really different. When a royal goes to a country on a state visit, they don't just go, like sometimes the foreign ministers go, like it's a soft diplomatic way to allow sort of greater ties to be built between two countries. That's why they do state visits and these sorts of things. If you're not familiar, state visit is basically when a royal hosts or is hosted by a country, and it's a way to have sort of a big shindig. Usually I look forward to them for the tiara moments. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, it's sort of a big issue there. And so we do have AB who gifted 5 Royal News Network memberships. Why, thank you so much, AB. You are so kind. Lisa also became a YouTube member. Why, thank you so much, Lisa. I really do appreciate it. And we have Christina as well, gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Christina. And it's funny, guys, I'll just add this here real quick as well. I did run into somebody today who she and her mom watch the channel. So Bethany, and I forgot to say hello to your mom for me. So thank you so much for saying hi. That was awesome. But let's go ahead and move over to sort of the other side of the Harry and Meghan story. Obviously, we've dealt with Andrew. So this is about the hour point of the live stream. So it's sort of big to say that Andrew has officially relinquished all his titles. And although he still, I think, technically has them, they're in basically a suspended status. Then he says he will not use them. And he's really not going to go to any events anymore. And he didn't really go to any anyways, but sometimes he would go to church events. He's not going to go to Christmas. Although I still have a bit of an issue with that, just because at Christmas it is family time. I don't want to see anybody prevented from going to church if they want to. I think that's not appropriate in my personal opinion, very personal opinion. But that's what it's looking like for the future. So, and we do have a super chat that just came in from Kari Renee Edwards. My first comment, Charles, I love your fashion takes, and the tiaras are my fave. Nutmeg's entire identity is her title. She's literally nothing without it. Yes, she's nothing without it. Nothing without it. It's like she could have had such a great career if she had really tried and not tried, I think, so hard to cling to it and frame everything in this idea of I'm the Duchess of Sussex. Because one of the things that, especially for Meghan's brand, I think has really killed it in some ways, is that her whole like view of the brand is basically buy it because I'm the Duchess of Sussex. Now that's terrible from a marketing and branding perspective, because you should want to buy a product because it's good. That will keep customers coming back. Because if the whole premise of her brand is buy it because I'm the Duchess of Sussex, it's gonna run out of steam at some point. And I have her products. because I did a review. There's actually a review video on the channel. If you're new here, I have a whole review of her stuff because I can't complain about it unless I've actually tried it. And this peppermint tea, guys, oh my gosh, it smells like toothpaste. It tasted like toothpaste. It was awful. So I felt like, though, I could only really criticize it if I had actually tried it. And that's where we are here. And so, yeah. And then Stacey said, I just saw this, says, I love your explanations of how this royalty works. Thank you, Brittany. You are welcome. I've been following royals for a super duper long time. I love following them. And so I'm looking forward, though, to seeing, and I love having conversations about what royalty means in this modern era. And I think that's why the Harry and Meghan aspect is quite interesting because they're trying to do something that could have worked. They just did everything wrong in the process. They did everything catastrophically wrong. And yeah, it needs to be addressed. And so we do have Peggy Spungen gifted 5 Royal News Network memberships. So I thank you so much. Peggy, I'm sure some people will really appreciate it. And we'll do Fire Elemental here real quick. And then we'll move on to Meghan as the influencer. Because again, this is why the title should be stripped. And it says, in my opinion, this is definitely the path now for Harry and Meghan. It will happen now. The dam has been broken. Just a matter of when, not if. Great point. Yes. Now that this step has been taken, it makes more sense for it to go further than this. And again, Harry and Meghan, I think, should be living in a fair amount of fear here. I think, in my personal opinion, for what it's worth. So let's go ahead and move over to Meghan's Instagram. So, because we're going to talk about a couple of things. And this, again, is sort of the issue with Harry and Meghan still having the title. Because she says here on her Instagram, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. And what the kind of interesting thing here is, too, is that Meghan is actually technically, guys, styling herself as a divorced woman. Because it should be Meghan, comma, the capital T, Duchess of Sussex. By doing this and putting this basically on her branding and everything, if she and Harry divorce, she doesn't have to redo any of the branding stuff because she's already styled as a divorced woman. But Sarah could use her title. And I'm sure Meghan was like, well, Sarah was able to use her title. Like, I could too. But with Sarah now being forced to also give up her title, it makes an interesting question for Meghan. Will she have to give up her title as well? And I think that's something Meghan definitely lives in fear of because, again, she has nothing else but this. This is all she's got. And it's just kind of, I mean, to go from the balcony of Buckingham Palace to an influencer is just unbelievably pathetic. It really honestly is. It's hugely, hugely pathetic in my personal opinion. And so it's just, yeah, bad. So I'm going to take a quick sip, guys. And let's move over and watch a couple of these videos because we've definitely seen a shift in Meghan Markle's Instagram, although it's still tracking just at 4.2. And it's only gained like a couple of thousand. Because last time I looked, she was at 4,251,000. So she's gained 3,000 in like a couple of days. Like this thing is moving at a glacial pace. And I'm sure she thought she'd be like, let's say, who am I looking at? Like Jennifer Aniston or something like that. Because she and Harry had the fastest growing Instagram at one point. Like in the first 24 hours, they had the fastest growing Instagram. And then like a month or two later, they were supplanted by Jennifer Aniston. But I think Meghan in her mind was thinking, well, we're going to get to like 10 million in a couple of months. Well, she's been on Instagram since January. It's been 10 months and she's only gained 4.2 million. Or really 3.5 at the end of the day. Now, that's a lot to a lot of people, especially in that short amount of time. But think about the amount of inches that Meghan gets in newspapers and columns and on YouTube and everything, that she can only get 4.2 million followers when she should have 50, tells you how damaged her brand is. And half of these people following, maybe not all half, but a good chunk of the followers are hate following. I do that. So if I pull up Instagram, I can see the latest news. And so let's go ahead, though, and watch these new reels. Because Meghan, she's got to try, because the last time she was on Instagram, all they had was boomerang guys. So now she really needs to live it up Vlognik style. And she needs to experiment with reels. So we can watch the first one here. This was the Paris one. And so we're in Paris, guys. And so Balenciaga, we got a view of the Eiffel Tower. So that means the hotel is expensive. Oh, breakfast provided very nicely, five-star hotel, I'm sure. And that's Duolingo in case you were curious, because I looked it up because I was like, "What is that?" So, another example, looking out of the balcony. Oh, do you guys all get a huge glam squad every time you go out and do something? I doubt it. And so she gets the card from Balenciaga. There's her whole team, all the stylist people and everything. Oh, we got French fries. Oh, look at all the Tom Ford lipsticks, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Tom Ford lipsticks. If you don't know, those things go for like $60 a pop, I want to say. $60 a pop, at least. And that might be being generous. They're not as bad as the Louis Vuitton ones, but and there's like 8 over there. Look, we got to walk in the nice fancy hotel in our fancy shoes, guys, in our custom Balenciaga outfit that makes me look like I'm a grandmother in Boca Raton. And then I think it's funny because this guy does not care about her at all. And she's like, was going to go that way. And then she's told to go that way. And then, guys, we had the blue steel moment here, or the Zoolander moment. We had the Zoolander walk. Look, I'm glamorous and special. Oh, look, the designer gives me a hug. Oh, my goodness. And oh, look, we're at Balenciaga with 2 different color whites here. We have stark white and cream and black. Why? I don't know. And that's not all. So we have this New York thing. Oh, we're on an airplane again. So special. Oh, we get specially made cookies. Oh, look at all my shoes. Look at all my shoes, guys. Because you travel and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pairs of high heels. Yep. And then we have all the clothes, all the very expensive clothes, all beige, by the way, or various neutrals. For the woman who claims she was forced to wear neutrals as a royal because she didn't want to stand out. Obviously, again, another lie, because the woman clearly loves neutrals and beige. Like, I don't know why she has to lie about that. It's just silly. And then, oh, look, my handsome hunk of a husband who's losing his hair and refuses to acknowledge it, and who only surfs in a giant swimming pool. Look how sexy he is. Oh, and I'm putting on my lipstick. Look at all the lipstick around, all the makeup gunk everywhere. Oh, and we're on the red carpet because, we all do that. Oh, this could not be more fake, guys. Imagine that it was like, oh, let's do these things. And we can get him in the background and can look, sexy or whatever. I don't know. I'm laughing at nothing. Like, without actually knowing what they're talking about, this just looks like 2 crazy people on a set laughing at nothing. We know she did not eat a speck of this pizza. Oh, we are at Project Healthy Minds again, and my wrinkled pants, my horribly wrinkled pants. Ugly outfit. Oh, and me and a Chanel, me with Gloria Steinem, because I'm not close to basically somebody like Queen Elizabeth II, who I would argue is like a real feminist. We had to go with Gloria Steinem. And then our fancy restaurant. Oh, Brooklyn, or not the Brooklyn Bridge, another bridge of some sort. And so I don't get much beyond that. Obviously, there's one more. But my thing is, I look at that and go, that doesn't feel to me like somebody trying to do something more than just bragging about their lifestyle. And I think it would maybe play better because we don't really like people who brag about their lifestyle as much anymore. Again, Meghan is about 10 years behind the influencer times. And I mean, it's and some people, so I will say the people it works to sort of brag about their lifestyle is somebody like Becca Bloom. If you're not familiar with Becca Bloom, maybe we'll find her here. She is wildly, wildly wealthy. Her parents are billionaires, and she goes and gets the Bulgari, custom jewelry, and her reception dress at her wedding costs like $25,000. So I'm sure her bridal dress costs $100,000. And so she has millions of dollars to throw at anything. So her showing off her lifestyle, it feels so excessive that there's a level of aspiration, sort of ridiculousness. Like, it's more like lifestyles of the rich and famous. Meghan, basically what she's showing is basically average influencer. And I just don't think it comes off as super well because there's nothing deeper there. She's not showing what she's talking about. She's not showing how she's interacting with families because the whole point, and one of my biggest issues with the Parents Network is that there is zero promotion of it. We get Harry and Meghan talking about it, but none of the families who are impacted by their alleged Parents Network are actually trained to talk to the media. In fact, the one family, which we should have talked about on here, obviously, but Andrew kind of blew everything out of the water, is that they basically talk about how great Harry and Meghan are. And I'm like, that should not be the point of the charity, is to tell us how great Harry and Meghan are. The point of the charity should be to help families, not to tell us how great the founders are. And if your charity has to be used to protect the founders, well, that's a sort of a big problem. That shouldn't be how a charity is set up. And so I see nothing really of value Megan's doing anywhere that's anything different than any other influencer. And the influencers I like add sort of a, you could say, twist to something. One of the ones I like watching, and maybe we'll pull her up just for fun, is Madeline White, who's in her 20s, mid-20s, or maybe late 20s now, I'm not sure. She's super adorable, kind of has a model figure, and she'll sometimes make her own clothes. And she'll try to do interesting things with styling, and she'll like put her camera up, and it's very simple videos, and she'll put something together and go, "Oh, I hate that." And then she'll go sometimes, "Oh, you guys hate that, but I'm going to do it anyways. Oh no, it is terrible. Let me take it off." And, talking about the clothes, but sometimes as well, she just is trying to make clothes. And, she's like, I have to go out for this evening. And so to me, that feels of greater value because it's somebody trying to put an outfit together and figure it out. And yes, she has the perfect figure, so she doesn't have to worry about it like people like me do or something like that. But it feels like there's an organicness to it that I enjoy. Megan's just feels like, look how wealthy and famous and fabulous I am. I just don't think that works. I don't think it works. And the thing is, when you're royal, and I talked about this a little bit on the Crown Report if you haven't ever watched that. So it's where I go over sort of all the other royal news and another live program just to kind of educate and everything. One of the things about royals, because I talked this week about how sometimes royals, yeah, they can seem a bit boring. And I say that not as as if it's a negative thing, but they shouldn't be flashy, they shouldn't be ostentatious to the point where they are, let's say, other, because the whole point of royals is that they should be able to connect with you. Because when royals are outside the palace doing engagements, they can't be like, "Oh, I can't touch you. You're a pleb or whatever," which I feel like is what Megan's like. "Oh, I can't touch you. You're an assistant." Ugh. They have to be able to interact with anyone from babies to the elderly to everyone in between, people with mental health issues and people who are, in difficult circumstances or whatever. They have to meet with a variety of people. And so the thing is, they're not trying to show their excess just to show their excess. But sometimes, yeah, they wear tiaras and these sorts of things, but they also need to be able to wear tiaras and then go down and hang out with an elderly person for an hour and talk to them about their experiences, during World War II. That's the chasm of royalty, and that's what makes it so difficult, I think, sometimes for people to navigate it, although most of them do just fine, is that you have this level of excess, but also you need to be relatable. And I don't feel like anything Megan's doing here is particularly relatable. And even influencers, I feel like, try to either be relatable in some way, and maybe it's sort of a ridiculous way, but it helps, or they're trying to teach you something. And so, like Madeline, I like because basically every day it's like, what do I wear today? And I kind of like that. I like fashion. I like that. I actually have a little idea. If I ever did more of an influencer thing, it'd be like how I search for buried treasure in fashion, because that is one of my passions, is finding buried treasure in fashion, which means going to like TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and finding fantastic deals, which I do. I call it treasure hunting. It's so fun. Anyways, so that's to me, because to me that's something where I hope I can teach others how to do something and how to, let's say, enjoy something and find great deals or whatever. I feel like Megan's just like, "Ooh, look how wealthy I am. Look, I'm a princess and I get to fly around and do these sorts of things, and I get to go to Paris and do my blue steel walk." I like somebody like Madeline. I keep talking about Madeline because I do like her stuff and I do see her videos at least once a day. I always think it's like she would be the first one to tell you how, like, she would if she did something like that, like Meghan did, she would be the first one to poke fun at it and say how stupid it looks and how stupid she's being. How like she like I'm just, doing it for funsies or whatever. Meghan seriously walked like Zoolander and somehow thinks that's a win. She didn't see the humor in it, the ridiculousness of her, oh, mm, and her pouty lip and everything. Anyways, guys, I just gotta say that. And then let's watch because this is the other issue, obviously, with the royal titles for Harry and Meghan. So if you haven't seen it, I did actually do a whole video on this, but this bag here, guys, you can get it from Longchamp. It's personalized and it's basically DS. Now, if it could be her assistant's bag, but there's actually like sort of two issues here. Number one, it's most likely Meghan's bag that she's forcing her assistant to carry. That's not a good look. And yes, I imagine a lot of royals have assistants who pull their stuff. I like 100%. I 100% understand that. But I feel like it's kind of creepy for you to be publicizing that your assistant is dragging your stuff around. I don't feel like that looks without like having something self-deprecating to it. It feels like, "Oh, watch my like watch my pawn or whatever drag around my stuff." Like or watching my pack mule or something. Like that's what it feels like to me. I don't really particularly find it very attractive. And I imagine DS does stand for Duchess of Sussex, and the reason is that she has a Christian Dior bag that she didn't put Meghan on because you can personalize the book totes or the Lady Dior bag. And so, for example, Queen Maxima of the Netherlands has a Lady Dior bag that says Maxima. Doesn't say Queen Maxima, it just says Maxima. And it's big enough because it's a book tote bag where it could have Queen Maxima on it, I think. But, she's queen. She doesn't need to put Queen Maxima on her own stuff. She wants to just put her name, which is Maxima. Meghan, meanwhile, has to have on her, it's a Lady Dior bag, so it's smaller. It says DSSOS. Duchess, DUCHSESS of Sussex. DSSOS. I mean, how stupid is that? It could just say Meghan. It could just say Sussex. Why does it have to say Duchess of Sussex? And again, I've said this before as well. They have lapel pins with their royal monogram on it. They have a doormat with their royal monogram on it. So they have this level of obsession with their titles that's just sort of a little bit ridiculous. And I feel like really, really just kind of disgusting, I think, because it's like you were only in there for 18 months and somehow you need to slap Duchess of Sussex on everything. Even her friend, she sends them notes that says, with compliments from Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Like, and her kids have stationery that says, and I'm sure they did before they even technically announced that the kids were going to take the titles. Her Royal Highness Princess Lilibet, His Royal Highness Prince Archie. I'm sure they send like invitations to their neighborhood friends saying from His Royal Highness Prince Archie of Sussex. Like stupid things like that. I just feel like really are off-putting to people because all it does is remind us, and it's supposed to remind us that Harry and Meghan, they're other. They're other. They're not like us. They're other. And I find that to be exceptionally tacky, like really, really tacky. So we have the bag here, Meghan in her outfit, like giving a nod to the camera. Like all this is so influencery. It's just so bad. And like again, 10 years ago influencer. And we can't actually hear anything that's happening, which I find a little bit annoying because the whole point is, hey, what did you do? Not 9 to 5. What's playing, guys, here is 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. She literally lives in a $16 million mansion with, I'm sure, a huge amount of staff and does not work a 9 to 5. She does not work a 9 to 5 like you work a 9 to 5, or maybe even a 9 to 9. She does not work a 12-hour shift as a nurse on her feet all the time. She has people who literally do pretty much probably everything for her and somehow thinks she's working a 9 to 5. And then her poor hapless assistant, and then Meghan. I don't know why she did this, like sticking her tongue out. I don't understand why we needed the tongue. It's like really juvenile. And again, she's carrying her purse, I'm sure, and the assistant is carrying all the other crap. Oh, but her assistant does get a glass of champagne every once in a while. And then Meghan needs to get into the cockpit of their Delta flight, and I'm like, I'm just so curious, maybe the pilots wanted it, I don't know, but I always feel like Meghan's one of those people who thinks that, like, everybody wants to meet her. Everybody wants to meet the Duchess of Sussex. Not really. We don't care that much. But maybe they do. If they wanted to, if that made their pilot's day, whatever. But I feel like other celebrities are kind of just like, they just want to get on their plane and they want to get home. And I feel like Meghan always wants to make a big parade about it. And I just find that a bit obnoxious and a bit sort of, again, very ego driven. And so then you see the Pentagon, which is probably not the best thing to do. I don't know why you would want to show off the Pentagon, which was attacked during 9/11. That's probably not the best idea. So anyways, that was that video. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it feels very influencery, and then Meghan kind of follows it up here, and this is sort of Meghan's overexposedness. She went to this event that Emma Grede does called A Seat at the Table Los Angeles. So they do this. So it's in a city built on dreams and even bigger ambition. One truth remains: success will never be built alone. For too long, we've watched how men in business have mastered this, because it's all about women empowerment, making deals over dinner, sharing opportunities over a game, and opening doors for one another in rooms we can't always see. Well, people have been doing that for everyone. It's not just like a man thing. That there's this weird thing that people sometimes think, or women or feminists or whatever, think that somehow men did this, like women have never done this thing. I still don't get. I still don't get it, because I'm sure they were doing this. But women have honestly usually have other interests like family, those sorts of things. I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing. So this dinner series is about making that energy ours, about women coming together, share openly, trade resources, and help each other get SHIT done. Because when women choose to collaborate, to champion each other, and to speak honestly about the highs and the hard parts, we don't just change our own stories, we change what's possible for every woman who follows. Here's some more seats, more voices, and more women leading, building, and owning their power. So I find this to be all, and Meghan, most of Meghan's sphere to be completely hypocritical, because they want to ask certain women to these type of events. Like Emma Grede would never host Megyn Kelly. She never would, because she doesn't probably agree with her politically. Maybe that's a step too far, but I don't think she would, because they don't really care about all women. They only care about certain women, and certain women, they feel like all these women were immensely wealthy, I'm sure, who were at this party. Like nobody was, the Kelly Westler or whatever, who owns this house, has a lot of money. Everybody at this event has a crap ton of money. Rachel Zoe, how is she not connected to things? So of course, but we did get, I'm surprised we don't have Meghan here chiming in, because she does respond sometimes on social media. So somebody else, and then they're tipping glasses over the table, and apparently the wine was by As Ever, although we do have reds there. So unless Meghan has a red right now, that's not entirely true. It was just the Sauvignon Blanc, which I think they say later. And there's Emma and Meghan. I didn't realize how short Emma was, because Meghan, I feel like, is pretty short too. So Emma must be fairly short. And so they're all hanging all over each other. Like, all of this is so incredibly fake. I mean, at least Emma Grede is a fantastic businesswoman, so she's earned what she's created for sure. But I'll just find this stuff to be so annoyingly fake and conceited and contrived, and so many things. And I don't think it plays particularly well for Meghan overall. I think at this point, she's sort of wildly overexposed. And I think that's going to damage her prospects in the future, because Meghan doesn't, I feel like, plan things out so it has a natural flow. It's like she disappears and then vomits everything at once. Like this year has been the year of content vomit from Meghan, especially in August. Like everything dropped the week of the second season of her show. And then she got totally upstaged by Taylor Swift, which was hysterical. And now this week she's getting totally upstaged by Prince Andrew. So, I mean, things don't always go well for the content vomit situation. But yeah, it's very, very interesting to see all the, like, just, I don't know, the conceitedness and everything. And I feel like oh no, the song Emma was playing over it mentioned Balenciaga. It was from Mariah Carey. And I can't remember. She might have been wearing Balenciaga. I can't remember here. But oh, the look was by Bottega Veneta and YSL. So, in case you were curious, not obviously a Balenciaga, which has its own issues. So, Megan, I think her mediocrity is going to come back to bite her at some point. And I'm curious if any of the women really liked her wine. And it was a way too to get her wine in hands of people who haven't had it yet. And hopefully they may buy it or encourage more people to buy it or whatever. But I've tried her wine. It was fairly mediocre. Like if you can get this stuff directly from France, that stuff is good. Because we did a wine tasting on our last trip and it was really, really good. I mean, it wasn't like great, like amazing because I'm not really into wine, but it was like I could appreciate it for what it was and it was good. But yeah, so it's just I don't think going to go the way Megan wants to, but she desperately wants to be a part of those circles and yet is dismissing the royal aspect. I'm just like, that's the more interesting aspect. Like, why aren't we doing that? But Megan wants to go and do things her way, and she is allowed to do them. But now with Andrew having given up his titles, Megan's future using that title to get into rooms like that with Emma Grede, because Emma Grede would not give Rachel Zane from Suits the time of day. The actress who played Rachel Zane on Suits would not be moving in those circles by any stretch of the imagination without that royal title. Without that title, she has nothing. She knows it, and I'm sure she's starting to freak out a little bit today after this decision was made. I'm curious if we'll get some sort of comment or reaction from the Sussexes, like not officially, but through like certain channels or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting development for sure. And then we do have one other thing I want to talk about real quick because I thought it was something I've been thinking about and something I find really, really interesting when it comes to Harry and Meghan and their toxicity within the charities. Usually around the last 30 minutes of the live stream, we do Q&A, and I do have some super chats to get to, but I did want to go over this real quick. Maybe it requires a longer video later. But one of the like most interesting things about sort of the African parks debacle for Harry. So if you're not aware, it came out this week that African parks decided to, or sorry, Chad decided to, the country of Chad. Yes, there is a country named that. Decided to sever ties with African parks. Now they gave a couple of reasons. They said bullying and I don't know. I don't think they said bullying. Sorry, I'm reading a comment over there. I think they said financial issues, transparency issues. Like they listed a whole list of things. But what's important to remember within the context of this region of the world is, and this is not all countries and all governments, but there's generally a lot of corruption in certain segments of Africa, and Chad is no exception. So there could actually be a variety of reasons for Chad to actually push African parks out. It wants its resources, it wants its money, because maybe sometimes when you push out an organization quickly, you can come back in and gobble up some of their cash or their materials or whatever. And so they can come in and sort of gobble some of that up. And they can maybe, if they control the parks, they can give it to somebody else who's going to give them more money. They can do something else with it. So the reality is, at least for me, in my opinion, when I look at the African park situation with Chad, I'm not sure I entirely buy all the allegations that Chad is proposing. And the reason is because, oh, did they join African parks again? Oh, that would be funny. They rejoined African parks. So, but here's the thing, guys. But this situation still stands, is that the allegations that African Parks made goes along with a series of allegations that Harry has had with Bale, somewhat with Invictus, with their own foundation. Because Harry and Meghan's public personas are so incredibly bad that you just have to make certain allegations in a particular way that people just agree with them without question. People just go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, that's fine." And that's because they have made themselves so toxic that anything they do is sort of wrapped up in this toxicity. And I find that really fascinating and really reflective of how badly their public persona is going, is that basically people believe pretty much anything. Now, I will say I've been sort of on the I've always had questions about the Sindabale thing because I think actually some of what Harry and Meghan's team said was correct. Maybe some of what a Sophie's team said was correct, but she spun things in such a particular way that people who don't like Harry and Meghan just went along with it without question, pretty much. And that's because when you're so incredibly toxic, anything you say will rile up certain people to your defense automatically. And if your public persona is so bad, people believe almost anything negative about you. And I think that's really indicative, at least to me, of how bad Harry's public persona is, especially when it comes to charities, especially within Africa, is that you have to make any particular allegations, and all of a sudden, everything changes and people go along with exactly what you said. And it puts Harry and Meghan, I think, in a really tough spot because we even had the World Vision situation. So this is World Vision London, which is different than the world headquarters. And Meghan was represented, I think, the Canada branch or something like that. She did 1 or 2 trips with them. Really, it was just for, again, PR reasons. Meghan didn't really care because she dropped it as soon as she became like a duchess. And it's like, you could have always still represented World Vision if you actually cared about what they were doing, which shows you, again, she didn't really care. But the London office has been accused of racism, misogyny, I think a couple of other things. And they've denied it. But certain people will automatically believe what they said because if it has a connection to Meghan, even if she's been gone from the organization for 8 years, they still kind of believe it because they were associated with her. And I think it demonstrates the level of sort of brand damage Harry and Meghan have, that people believe pretty much anything. And it doesn't bode well for them. Because how do you adjust after that? How do you sort of redo your public persona, or how do you rehabilitate public persona when it is so bad that an organization just has to make a series of allegations and all of a sudden it's back? So yeah, 5 hours ago, Chad restores ties with wildlife charity linked to Prince Harry. And again, the interesting question becomes, why did they do that? And in part because I don't think that there were actual issues, but Chad knew it could exert pressure. So let's check this out real quick here, guys. So it says a conservative group linked to Prince Harry's and Chad's government. And again, linked to Prince Harry. He's not like, I mean, he's heavily involved in it, but any group just linked to Harry, it's a particular thing. So Chad, I think, exercised that link to get concessions. So it says have agreed to sign a new partnership less than 2 weeks after Central African countries severed ties with the organization. Chad had terminated its agreement with African Parks on October 6th, accusing it of failing to curb poaching. The two parties released a joint statement on Friday saying they have initiated in a spirit of dialogue and cooperation, a series of discussions relating to the delegated management of protected areas. Basically, guys, this is what I think happened. Chad decided to leverage Harry's bad reputation to make a series of allegations to get concessions from African parks. That's what I think happened. That's how bad of a reputation Harry has. That's how much brand damage Harry has, which is extending to his other charities because his reputation is so bad. His charities either necessarily or unnecessarily get dragged into it because of him. So African parks might have gotten a worse deal here, or maybe not as much freedom or something like that, because I don't think the allegations were ever really true. It was just leverage. It was just leverage. And it was leverage they knew they could use because of this man right here, Prince Harry. Wow. So it says he's a board member and the former president, manages around 20 parks. New agreement will see African parks once again manage Zaguma National Park and Ndi Natural and Cultural Reserve in Chad, which has managed for 15 years. African parks would continue to finance and co-manage these protected areas, as well as pursuing the implementation of future projects until new agreements are signed. This milestone comes at the close of a challenging period that required significant dialogue to reach mutual understanding and commitment on a way forward, a statement from the conservation group read. So Peter Burnhead said that the reinstatement provides a stable foundation to continue safeguarding some of Chad's most extraordinary natural and cultural landscapes together with the communities who depend on them. So really fascinating. Like, this is truly fascinating that African parks literally leverage Harry's horrible reputation to get Chad utilized Harry's horrible reputation to get concessions from Chad or from African parks. Sorry, I keep getting them mixed up for some reason. Either way, Harry's horrible reputation is actually damaging African parks, which shows you as well, which goes back to what we started talking about in the beginning of this video, is that Harry and Meghan's bad public reputation and image. Yes, they're not indicted or around criminal behavior like Prince Andrew is, but their damaged brand, their damaged image does drag other people down with them. And this is a fantastic example of that. Chad only complained because they knew if they said the right things, people would get outraged, and then they could use that against African parks. And African parks, because it's still associated with Prince Harry, gets dragged into Harry's bad reputation. It's unbelievable, because I don't think really any of it is true. That's just my personal opinion. And yeah, it's sort of crazy. It's absolutely insane. So guys, that is the last that we have here, but we do have some super chats that we haven't had a chance to get to yet. And we do have a Peggy Spungen gifted 5 Royal News Network memberships. Why, thank you so much, Peggy. Someone will really appreciate that. Oh, I did read that one earlier. So we do have Ellen C says, thanks, Brittany, for your coverage. You are so welcome. It actually really helped that Andrew's thing happened today. That was wasn't expecting it, but great time to have this live. Lou said, worst shoe collection ever. All that money and only 2 shoe colors. Well, I will have to say Meghan had a bit more of creativity, because honestly, Catherine's shoe collection for a long time was very boring. She wore the same pair of Sledge LK Bennett shoes, guys, until those things fell apart. Like, Catherine's shoe game is not much better. Who has the best royal shoe game? I don't know. Maxima has some interesting stuff, but she also has like clogs. Like, she'll sometimes go for real big platinum stuff. And I'm like, why? We do also have Crown Princess Victoria has I also own them because they were the cheapest GM Vito Rossi shoes. And I wanted to do a comparison for a future fashion video, which is that they're these lime green GMV2 Rossi pumps. They are ugly as heck, but Crown Princess Victoria also owns them, guys. So, like, most royals tend to go just for pumps, but usually they have them in a variety of colors, which I do think is kind of fun. SBD Girl 88 says, I thought you mocking Harry not being a big boy and using the wave pool to surf when the video of Catherine William training water rescue came out recently. Well, thank you so much for the super chat. And yeah, well, I think sort of the differentiation there is that water training obviously requires, I think, it's hard to get the exact right conditions in the ocean. And obviously you have higher risks there as well for training. And I'm sure they start in the pool and then move to the ocean. But a lot of people who learn surfing, because surfing is a casual activity, start learning surfing in the ocean. Like my mom, who's in her 60s, or maybe was about 60 at that age, I can't quite remember, learned surfing in the ocean and had to paddle out quite far away in Hawaii in the Pacific Ocean, and was like, had to get help coming back. Like, I think they had to push her board so she could keep going. And Harry, who's a grown man in his 40s, needs a giant swimming pool to achieve the same result. So in that instance, I sort of, gotta call out Harry there. Matthew Rural, thank you so much for the super chat here. Says, I think it's a very sad life. She replaces her lack of purpose with consumption. She is the antithesis of Queen Elizabeth II. Exactly. Meghan, it's all about consumption. It's all about the money. It's all about the fame, the fortune. There's nothing really deeper there. And that's what you even see in those videos. There's nothing of depth. It's basically, I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm fabulous, aren't I awesome? And it only helped her grow by 3,000 people. That platform has not moved in a long time. And I think that's really a reflection of, because one of the things that's actually sort of interesting you could say about Megan's baby mama video, which I still think is crass, tacky, and so many things, is that if she had cut it off before she started grinding like she was in the club, people actually connected to that because that was a trend. People liked it or whatever. And so she grew because there was a connection to that. None of what she's doing people can connect to. And it feels very much braggadocious. And I don't think it's getting the reaction she probably hoped it would. But we may see more of this. We may not. I don't think Megan still understands Instagram, although she's obsessed with making it work, even though things are moving away from Instagram. But we do have Teresa here as well, giving a super chat. I love Sophie's clothes and shoes. So yes, Sophie has some nice pieces. I'm not always a fan of her stuff. Some of the Susanna London stuff I find is hit and miss, but she is lovely. And I think she does a great job representing the UK monarchy. So, guys, we do have some time here to wrap up some questions. We do have Marcella says, money and fame are fleeting. Families are everything. Something Harry and Meghan cannot grasp. So Coffee Cat says, if you want to talk about other things, create your own channel. No one is stopping you. Yeah, of course. Oh, is that for somebody else? But yeah. Coastal Angel says, feels like some celebrities use African charities as a farce. They don't really care. Yeah, they don't. Carol says, I love Sophie's leather dress. That is nice. Becky says, whenever Meghan wants to appear smart, she always touches her nose. Yeah, I've noticed other people mentioning that. Yeah, I have allergies, so that's why I touch my nose, because I get like a little tickle quite a bit. And Jen says, Meg thought she was the next Diana, but she's the next Fergie, but worse, with no remorse. Yeah, I agree. Banana Bread says, her and JLo are so much alike, fame and money. Seabass says, they are not flashy. So Tracy Brown says, leave Beatrice and Eugenie alone. I didn't do anything to them. But I think there is some reason to question things for sure. Ritz says, I hope a fairy godmother sprinkles some dust on Grand Duchess Stephanie for some gorgeous clothes and shoes. She deserves it. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I think so too. I'm really hoping she looks. I was really, really excited, guys, for her ascension. And I was like, the best we can come up with. It's the best we can come up with. So Reddit Rediscover with Sharona says, is Andrew giving up his active succession as well, or his place in the line of succession? No. He is not giving up his place in the line of succession. That would probably remove his daughters as well, and I don't think they should be punished for their parents, but he is so far down the line, he is pretty he's not that important. Becky says, Beck. She read my comment. Yay! All right, I feel like maybe people are talking about other things. I don't know. Oh, Lemon says, plants in the background, please. I do not actually have plants. I don't think you can even see plants. I do have tiaras, though. Those are tiaras. Nice ones, too. Not real ones, but. Rit says, touching the note is a spool of creating another life. One of her most consistent habits, touching your nose. It's funny. Yeah, she's like, the faux humility always gets me. Royal fan says, Andrew's so far down the line of succession to be negligible. Yes, and Harry will be too. It'll just still take time. Yes, Andrew, Diane asks, is Andrew still a counselor of state? Yes, he is, but they've already basically removed him from operating in that role by saying that only counselors of state can only be working royals. And they extended the pool to include the Princess Royal and Prince Edward. So Camilla can be a counselor of state, but Catherine cannot. It can only be blood royals. So at some point, George, Charlotte, and Louis will all be counselors of state. And Catherine will be as well. So it's them in the first 4 in the line of succession. So when William becomes king, it'll be him. Catherine is counselor of state, but she's not included in the official list. So once the Wales's kids come of age, it's George, Charlotte, Louis, and then it would be Harry. Coastal Angel says, wonder will the Oak Girls work with Meghan now that her dad's title face titles? No, I don't think so. Seabass says, I bet Harry's on the phone and Meghan is emailing Charles. Yes, or handwriting. She doesn't email, guys. She handwrites. So she's gonna handwrite him a letter. Are we sure about that? If anyone has read Entitled, you will clearly see why Andrew's title should have been removed long ago. I agree. I agree. I thought that was a really great book and examination of what Andrew and what's going on. Jen says Megan hates royalty, but will put a massive DS on her bag. Exactly. Exactly. Indigo Rose. And the thing is, guys, most royals don't plaster their titles on everything. They really don't. Indigo Rose says, I don't think she cares. She thinks everyone loves her. That is true. She thinks everybody loves her. Hannah says, I'm pretty sure Meghan is coming out with a makeup based on the THR cosmetic cases without brands on her table and the lipstick tube in the video. It might be. It might be. I thought it was no makeup. So we'll see. I don't know. But oh, Sweet Sue says not an assistant. She's wearing a $14,000 Brunello Cucinelli trench coat. Credit Think Beautiful. Interesting. She's something. Royal Fan 180 says, I served with Andrew in the RN Royal Navy. He was a weapons grade knob. And then he was a weapons grade knob now. Yes. Lizzie B says, members video soon? Yes. And we also have a super chat over here as well. Says Gina, hey ho, Harry and Meghan need to go. Why, thank you so much for the super chat, Gina. And yes, they do need to go. They need to go. Yes. So we'll have a members live video next Monday, and then hopefully a video or two next week as well. Go Gob Livid says, word is that Meghan is generously passing off freebies to staff, maybe where the trench came from. Oh, that could be true. That could be true. It could not be Meg style. And honestly, as well, guys, if you are smart, I actually got, I think, a pretty good deal today myself, searching for buried treasure at TJ Maxx. And so you are able to sometimes get some really good deals on things that are very expensive. So she could have purchased it retail, or it could have been something she got, like, and especially if you're living in Los Angeles, there's secondhand places, resale places, those sorts of things, Poshmark, like there's a ton of ways to get things. Even if it's really expensive, you might be able to get a cheaper version. Hannah said, Scout Rouse, awesome guy, by the way. He said it looked like one of Harry's speeches, like he may have been on some type of drug because he kept rubbing his fingers together and kicking his leg. I don't really want to speculate on somebody taking drugs, just because I don't know. Like, unless you're like, it's really, really obvious. Like, there were some pictures of Cara Delevingne a couple of years ago where it was really obvious. She was like, she kind of had that, like, she was hanging, head over. Like, you could tell, like, zombified, basically. You could tell she was on drugs. Like, and she's not denied it either. She's basically confirmed it. And so there's just no way she wasn't on drugs. So, but beyond that, like, people have nervous tics and these sorts of things. So unless it's like supremely obvious, I don't really like to speculate too much on that. Douglas says it's not written and spoken. It's fights out near Morris. Okay. Victoria and David Beckham won more fans with their documentary. Harry and Meghan just created more lies. The more they speak, the more they contradict themselves. Exactly. And I don't think the more she shows, the less, I don't think she's getting many friends or followers. SBD Girl 88 says, I still find it funny Harry uses a wave pool to surf and William and Catherine used one train to save lives. The difference. Yes. Liz M12 says, King Charles will be surprised at the good response of moving the titles. He will surely be encouraged to remove Harry's. I think so. And it says, if Harry has drugs on stage, we know. Meghan, yeah. Liberty says, he hasn't had his title removed. I'll therefore no longer use my titles that have been conferred upon me. He just isn't using them. So it is sort of confusing because we're seeing different things, because the Times says, like, I saw the statement, but the Times says they've kind of been removed. So some of the language here is a bit inconsistent. I agree. Angela says, I believe that LA riots happened before the soap ad even aired. I would not be surprised. Ellen says, normal Americans loathe and utterly reject titles. I don't think that's necessarily right, but I don't think anybody likes a title being shoved in your face quite so much. I think that's what people find a little bit grating. DTT 1805 says, I'm never getting over the DS Meghan put on the long champ bag. So tacky. Yeah. Seabass says, can you white label makeup? I'm not sure what that means. William says no one believes she's royal. Prince Harry, yes, because we know he was a baby. Yeah, and there's a difference, of course, between being married in royal and a blood royal. Huge differences. So Liberty says he's still in Royal Lodge, still has access to royal estates, still has the York jewels. Seriously, he's giving up nothing. I don't think he has that many York jewels, really. When Guang says, "Do you think it's right for the Queen to pay off Andrew's accuser with British taxpayer dollars?" So it wasn't taxpayer dollars; it was from her private wealth. And so, if she wants to do that, that's her prerogative. Can't really say anything more than that. Ritz says, "When I see someone doing no makeup, it's usually 15 steps rather than 30." Wow, yeah. Uh, Demi Trauma says, "Meghan hates the monarchy because she can't gold dig and become queen. It's a hierarchy," as Harry said. Exactly. Lisa says she's not going to be selling makeup, but she will be selling makeup down. Phoenix says, "Guaranteed as Prince William has assisted Andrew lose his title, William will make sure Harry loses his as well." I would not be surprised if that's the case. Andy says she was kicked out of the royal family. Why does she want the title? Because that's all she's got. Because her friends are wealthier or more um, talented than she is, and Meghan's got the title, and that's it. Yeah. Are we sure about that? If one has any medically assisted facial enhancements, I don't want to hear their beauty, makeup, or skincare tips. No, thank you. I don't totally agree with that because it's usually a combination of things. But I mean, the interesting question too is Meghan disappeared for so long. And then, like, it was like, I want to say a good solid 2 months because we saw her at the beginning of the July and then who knows when that was filmed and then not again until really, really this month. And so the question was, I almost thought, well, maybe she had a nose job. Doesn't think she had that, but did she maybe have some sort of plastic surgery? She might have. Jen says Kardashians don't have talent, but they have successful businesses. As ever, formerly Arrow is a hobby vanity project at best. Exactly. And they work really hard. And that's the difference too. They work really, really hard. He says, "Is it true Meghan is a vegan? What's up with her cooking chicken all the time?" I don't think so. But I think she wanted vegan as part of the menu. Girl said, Sarah Ferguson agreed not to use the title and daughters get to keep. Yep. Barry says William surfed in the ocean. Yes, he did. There are pictures to prove it. Yeah, Jen says Charles needs to take care of Harry. Don't leave this mess for William. I agree. Don't leave the mess for William. Chris, hey Chris. Sarah is no longer Duchess, but Sarah Ferguson. But her daughters will remain princesses of the blood. Yeah, and they are, and they should remain this. But yeah. Liberty says Richard Eden just posted this. Andrew isn't losing his titles. He just isn't using them. Kick his butt out of the Royal Lodge into cottage. That's punishment. Well, I think not using them because he was using them on like various things, I think is definitely a punishment for sure. And we will see again how this sort of plays out. Because the problem is that they strip the titles from Andrew. I just don't know what happens to the girls. And again, I don't think the girls should be punished for the sins of their parents. So Lizzie B says, yes, you can make an order to a lab and put your brand name on it. That's called white labeling when it comes to makeup. Yeah, that would be what Meghan does because that's kind of what I think what she did with As Ever, which is the reason why, guys, one of the things you'll notice actually if you go through and watch some of Meghan's As Ever promos whenever they occur, which is sort of rare, is that she doesn't use her own products. Like she uses like one of her products, like one. Royal fan, would you pick Andrew over Meghan? I don't know. It's tough to say. I do like that Andrew has kept his silence, but obviously, who knows if he's still wheeling and dealing behind the scenes? I don't know. So, Wang Guang says, "Who is worse, Queen Camilla, the side chick who's partly responsible for ruining the life of Princess Diana, or Meghan Sussex?" Well, I think ruining the life of Diana is not accurate. So I think that's a little bit harsh because that wasn't really that was a complex issue. Jen says having Meghan at the Fortune 500 summit was a joke, a disservice to all the budding entrepreneurs in the audience. She did not give any helpful advice at all. No. So just me alone says, hi from Madrid. Here in Spain, we already had this experience with Infanta Cristina resigning from her titles as Duchess of Palma because of the scandal that put her on the front page. Yes. Other royal families have experienced it. And I think, again, the Brits should be even more aggressive, you could say, about it. Maria says, good time to fix the royal website. So let's check, guys. And the royal family has fixed the website. So yep, no, he's still on there. Although I will say, guys, the royal family website is ridiculously slow to update. I hate their website so much. It's so bad. But yeah, they're still at the bottom of the page. Obviously, Princess Alexandra, we had the Duke of Gloucester, who should be, this is all out of order. Oh my gosh, I hate their website. Ugh. I hate their website. Sorry. I used to work on a website. Like this looks fine because I do think you need to highlight the blood royal over the married in. Then we have this, small ones, big one, small one, big one, small one, big one, small one. Why? I don't know. It's dumb. It's dumb. So, Lynn Gideon says, so are Harry and Meghan freaking out or are they delusional enough to think they aren't next? I think they're probably starting to worry a little bit. I think they're starting to worry a little because it would be stupid not to worry a little bit. Yeah, advice at work says King Charles should emulate his cousin Queen Marguerite and take care of stripping Harry and Meghan and Archie and Lily instead of leaving the job to William. Frederick must be so grateful to his mother. Yeah, I'm still not quite sure why she did it, but it was definitely an interesting move and one that definitely resulted in family tensions. And basically also Joachim and his wife are basically kicked out of the country. Basically, but they're forced to live abroad basically. Yeah, so are we sure about that? Says, firstly, God forbid it, but if something happened to the Wales's family, I don't believe the British public would accept Harry as king. I think that would be the end of monarchy overnight. I agree. I agree. Yeah, Carol says just take the bottom line off. Exactly. You just put them into draft mode. That's how you do it. It's not that hard. So Palm Beach County native says, in my opinion, Meghan Markle post about girl power was more about meeting with Gloria Steinem than actually about her daughter. Probably true. Mary said they should have changed the website before announcing the regarding tiles. Well, as soon as they made the announcement, they should have changed the website. And then these are super easy things to change, guys. Like I've worked in the back end of website. All you do is go to draft and change it. And that's it. Rick says, where will Sarah Ferguson live? She has her own homes. She has one that she's attempting to sell, I think at a loss right now. And then she also has, thinking of it, it'll come to me in a second. She also does live at Royal Lodge. Should she live at Royal Lodge? Probably not. Does she? Yes. Smiley Zed said they haven't given up Royal Lodge, so imagine they will stay there. Yes, and they don't have to. Like, what people don't understand too is that Andrew's rental agreement is like airtight. Like they can't evict him basically. Unless he can't maintain the property, they have to evict him. And so I think the money, so again, my personal theory is that Andrew did let the house decay for a little bit because he didn't really want to spend his money on the house. He probably wanted whatever payment he got from his mother or whatever to take care of maintenance and he could keep his money for himself because he strikes me as that kind of guy. And then when he was sort of forced to, then he started using his money to pay. Andy says, does Harry not get any financial support from the monarchy? Living so expensive, I would think. No. And the monarchy, the thing is, people don't understand, monarchy is not cash rich. There's a difference sort of between being land rich and cash rich. So if you're cash rich, you have a lot of liquid assets. You have cash. Monarchy doesn't have a ton of cash. It has a lot of physical assets. So artwork, furniture, land, a lot of the things they can't sell. because they're part of the royal collection or whatever. So Charles technically owns it, but doesn't have the full control over it like a normal person would. So Jen says, poor Archie and Lily don't have any ties to the UK. Their titles are meaningless. All their parents doing. Exactly. Jane Jones says, Meghan hanging all over Gloria's sign and bother me because she's an elderly lady. She needs to be gentle with her. Good point. We also have Chryslers from Australia. Thank you so much for the super chat. Says, hi from me in Tasmania. Ooh, nice. I love it when you join Dan too. It's always more interesting. Am I mean to say that I just want Catherine and William to be king and queen now? I don't think that's mean, but it's just, yeah, I think people are sort of not as much of a fan of Charles, although he is working really hard. And I think for Catherine and William, it would be nice if they became king and queen after their kids were out of school. I think that would be helpful to them, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. So we will see what happens. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think, although I will still say, guys, I think we should expect a reign of King William earlier than probably, I'm sure, either his father or him would want to. Seabass says they live in luxury, but they don't own it. Exactly. Phoenix says apparently Meghan didn't realize that RF isn't cash rich, or she would not have married the dumb prince. Exactly. And that's my thought too. SBD girl says 88. We don't know what tensions are happening behind the scenes that causes these decisions to strip the titles in other countries. We were shocked when everything with how jealous Harry had been always come out. Yeah, I agree. Red says, I love how Harry thought he could decide to retain HRH titles for his kids so they could decide if they wanted to be working royals. Oh, Harry, your little fantasy world. I forgot about that. Oh my gosh, that was so dumb. I remember reading that. I was like, what are you thinking? That's not how this works. That is not how this works. Well, guys, we will go ahead and wrap up the live stream. That was not expecting that news to break, but so glad that we can sort of go over it in real time. I hope that you guys found it helpful. Of course, we'll be clipping out different segments of this to put up. And this time I am planning on, but we'll see how things go. This will be eventually made sort of unlisted. So you can still, if you still have the link, you can still get to it, but it'll be re-uploaded tomorrow so people can watch this again in like Premiere and have an opportunity to chat in the feed as well if they want to, because people used to really like Saturday mornings. And again, I'm so sorry we had to move away from that, but actually have kind of why we did it is that, I want to do things on Saturday morning, and the live stream made that sometimes difficult. So we had this new fantastic arrangement. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying it. Thank you so much for tuning in. So much more to come on this Andrew thing. And we shall speak to you again very soon. Have a wonderful, happy weekend with your family and friends. And